I don't know if this will work. So I haven't really updated in a minute. But there's been 2 weeks of pancakes and chai that have been absolutely just wild. I have basically 2 stories that kind of stuck out. The first week, there was a man from Germany, and it was really interesting. I was feeling tired that week, not like doing much of anything, but Grace really encouraged me to talk to somebody, and I just sat down next to this man, and I was just like, "It's good music, huh?" He was like, "Yeah," and we got into a conversation, and he ended up telling me that he was on a journey, taking some trails around Europe, and he was a Christian and had been talking to the Lord a lot, and Jesus was providing everything that he needed. And then he ended up telling me that the Lord spoke to him and said he would meet a man named Tim. And then I sat down next to him. So it was fascinating to realize that the God of creation was speaking my name to a stranger before I even met them. That's humbling. And just, in a sense, terrifying, but really relieving at the same time. So I ended up he got my contact, and so now we can keep in contact. He got my email, and so that happened. And then there was another guy, just this last week, that I spoke to, and that was fascinating. Got to see kind of the other side of the spiritual realm, if you will. So basically I was sitting there reading the Bible, listening to the live music, and a man came up and took the microphone from I think it was Luke that was singing. Anyways, he basically started singing something along the lines of, "Say anything to me and I'll turn around. Give me a word and I'll change my ways." And I just got the impression that he was searching for Jesus and to proclaim the name of Jesus to him. So after he was done singing, he kind of went off into the background, probably about 100 yards from anywhere else, and I just had the urge to go talk to him, but I hesitated and I waited. And then there was another man that came up to him and his friends, because he was with 3 other people, and another man came up to him, and the other guy was drunk, and they got into an argument, and the singer just started punching him in the face, punching the drunk guy right in the face. And I thought, well, that's my cue. Can't just stand by and watch that happen. So I walked over there, and I had no idea what I was going to say. But they were fighting. And I'm not a stranger to fights, but I don't like them, you know. So I walked over, and as soon as I was probably about 20 yards, they ended their little scuffle. And the drunk guy walked away, and the singer sat down. The singer was angry, and I could see that in his face and in his demeanor. So I walked over to him, and I said, "Man, you have a beautiful voice. Where did you learn to sing like that?" And it was like something in him turned around, like 180 degrees, just switched from one person to another, from this angry, just hateful thing to this beautiful man, this is just child of God that was just sitting there and open. And he said, "Man, it comes from pain." And he told me his testimony. He proceeded to just pour out these awful, horrible things that had happened to him. And I sat there in silence and listened to him just pour his heart out to me. He told me about his culture and his life and his religion and all these things that have impacted him throughout his life, and that's how he said he could sing so well. And then he told me about his struggle to make a living, why he wasn't famous, why he wasn't, blessed, or why he didn't have all the money. And that's when I told him I couldn't relate. His friend next to him said, "Oh, but you believe in the Bible." And I said, "Yeah, well, that's why I can't relate. I get my daily bread for free. And I get my daily bread because I'm saved. I'm saved by Jesus Christ. And the moment I said Jesus Christ, he came at me with the name of with a different name. And he said it 3 times, and he said it loud, and he said it in an intimidating manner, but I stood back and I realized that wasn't him. It wasn't him trying to interrupt me. It wasn't him trying to stop me from saying that name. It was whatever was trying behind him, influencing him. And so I looked back. I was sitting with him, so I sat back and I said, "That's interesting. It's interesting that you would say that." And then he went on to tell me that about the fall of Lucifer and how that happened. And I said, "Where are you getting this from? Where's your information coming from?" And he was stuck at that moment because he didn't know where he was getting that information from. I could tell him that I was getting my information, that I was saved from the Bible, but he was lost for words. So he looked at me, and he looked at the people beside him, and he said, "Watch this." And he closed his mouth as if zipping it closed and locking it. And I sat back and I smiled at him. And I looked at him and I said, well, that's interesting. And I knew he was chained. And I prayed for words, because I knew if I didn't say something, he would stay chained. He wouldn't be able to break those chains. For some reason, I knew that. And so I thought of the most beautiful thing I could. That morning we had gone surfing at Broken Head. And the waves were amazing. The waves were formed just perfectly. And they were huge. Not that I could surf any of them, but we paddled out. Got smashed a few times. And I told him about how behind the shape of a woman, the shape of a wave is one of the most beautiful things I think God has ever created. And I asked him then, now that his mind was off of whatever he was doing and it was on the waves, I asked him, do you surf? He said, you could see the struggle in his eyes, and his lips began to shake. And that moment it broke. And he said, yeah, man, I body surf. And from then on we had this beautiful conversation about how awesome it is just to get tumbled and to find that barrel. And just to be completely out of control when you get tumbled by one of those waves, to be just tossed like a newborn child. Just to release everything that's in you that desires to have control over you. Just, you don't have it anymore. And we connected over that. And I knew his chains had been broken. And the head of the snake that was controlling him had been cut off. And he looked at me with a peace in his eyes and he said, man, you have a good night. I said, you too. So I got up to walk away, and he stood up and he said, thank you. And the lady that was sitting next to him asked me if I had any pancakes. I said, of course. So I said, let me go bring them to you. And so I went to go get some pancakes, and there happened to be 4 pancakes left. 3 of them were in the shape of crosses. And so I brought them to him. And I said, well, here's your daily bread. And it was amazing to see the Lord work in miraculous ways. I never would have had the confidence to do that before. And it's not me. It's not me. It's the Lord. It's Jesus. The name of Jesus Christ is powerful. Everything will bow down to that name.